Hi, CvCISO podcast listeners. Welcome to episode 51 of the CvCISO podcast.
He froze.
My name is Evan Francine, and joining me are
Evan
my
froze
awesome
right
friends,
as
compatriots,
it was about to
whatever you want to
record.
call them.
Oh, he did.
Meg.
Yeah.
Dave, and
Should I just stop it and we start over?
non-stable internet connection.
Good.
I
We should try
would
this
prefer
over
to
again.
keep what we had, but
Hello, podcasters. Hello, CvCISO
Hello.
podcasters. Welcome to today's episode. It's, what was it?
57.
57.
We have Evan here. Evan, stay still if you're here.
Yeah. Whatever you do, don't move.
Say anything, Evan. You talk too much.
You know, we figured Evan talks too much, so he's agreed to
Take it
he left.
personally. Exit stage left.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, we're still going.
It happens to be Evan's topic this week. So as you can tell, he dropped off, and I'm sure he's rejoining us. But
He
we
chose
are planning
incident
on
response.
incident
Yes.
response.
So we're going to talk. We're not sure exactly what he wanted to talk about specifically with incident response, but today we're talking incident response. So, stick around, buckle up, and let's say there's an incident. What happens next?
Yeah, I think we can start by saying incident response preparedness is a good thing.
Yeah, an incident. I mean, prepare for incidents to happen. Oh, he's back. Okay, frozen again. Don't talk. Don't.
We just sat for
Yeah.
35 minutes chatting and nothing wrong with this camera.
But this is an incident. All right.
It
So
is.
this is an exercise. So this is an incident. How do we respond?
Well, the show goes on.
Right. Just like in business,
Yeah.
the show has to
Mhm.
go on. Right.
Yeah.
Something's happening. Something bad's happening, and you got to keep moving. You got to keep working. But you have to. It's easier when there's a plan in place. When there's no plan, then you got people scrounging around like chickens with their head cut off.
Thanks, Jordan, for your technical expertise in bringing Evan back to solving the incident.
Well, I followed the playbook, and there was a DDoS attack on his hotel room.
Right there on page 14. But you knew it was there because you were prepared.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen to anybody, especially when you're top of the list. When you're top of the list as a surveillance asset, sometimes you get hit by these things.
So we continued recording, Evan. We're still live, and we did the introduction for you.
Yeah, I'm Evan Francine. I do security stuff. I used to when I had skill. I've since grown old, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So I'm happy to be here.
Well,
And we're talking incident response. So we set the table for you, but we wanted to kind of pick your brain on what set up the topic here for us. What did you want to dive into for that?
There's a lot of pressure, Jordan. I didn't expect to get hit so hard with such deep questions right out of the gate. And I think what you're doing right now is exposing my lack of preparedness, because that's how I roll on these things.
Were you a Boy Scout?
No, wasn't even a boy, actually. So it's funny that you would bring that out. Definitely a scout. I mean, I scout stuff all the time. No, all right, incident response. So yeah, there's a lot of incidents. I don't know if you knew that out on the interwebs and everywhere. But an incident response is one of those things where I think there's like this human propensity to think. Propensity. Do you hear that word?
nice.
Can somebody run that through ChatGPT real quick and just tell me what that means? Because I don't even know where that came from. Propensity. Yeah. Well, I think people generally don't think that it's going to happen to them. People have this, you read the news and you think, oh gosh, that sucks that, Google Cloud went down yesterday. My day was fine. I got half the day off, because I couldn't access things. But every time you have an incident, somebody pays the price for that. I mean, somebody suffers.
Well, do we even want to take a step back and clarify what is an incident?
Well, I think people get confused between events and incidents. So an
Right.
event
I
is just,
definitely get confused about those.
well,
Yeah.
and the easiest way to describe the difference, an event is just an occurrence. It's things that happen, right? There's events happening every millisecond. The difference between that and an incident is it's an event with a negative outcome, or a potential negative outcome. There's a consequence associated with an incident. Other events, there's no, either there's no consequence associated with the event, or it's like irrelevant. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it could just be informational.
Yeah. So an incident is something that's bad that you care about.
And it's more severe than an event.
Well, an event doesn't have any consequence.
Yeah.
So there's no severity with an event at all. It's just stuff.
An incident's like a subset of an event. meaning like everything is an event. It happened, but it may not have consequences or impact.
Yeah.
It's
But
just a
once you
running log of everything going on.
exactly,
Yeah. So
exactly,
so the way the logic flow goes is you've got, events, just things that happen all the time. If it hits a certain trigger, and you get to determine what that is, because that's one of the things I think that people struggle with too, is like, well, help me determine if this is an event or an incident. It's at the end of the day, it's really not my call, right? Because I mean, there's some things that are just obvious that they're an incident, right? There's a negative consequence associated with this event that makes it an incident. But other things, it's like it's up to you to determine, is this something I care about or not?
right.
And so you have events, and then it goes into incident. So once it gets, so you just make these rules, and this is part of the planning process for an incident response: is what are the rules that make it an incident? All the things that happen are events. If it does these 5 things, 10 things, 100 things, those are incidents. And as crystal and as binary as you can make it, as objective as you can make it.
So like email comes in, event.
Yes.
User opens email, event. User clicks on the link in the email, event. That link runs a script that then creates inbox rules and changes where mail is delivered, possibly an incident, or alerted for you to review. So it probably is an incident, because if you deem that as something that could be dangerous.
Well, and it just got identified as something potentially more than an event.
Yeah. So events,
So are events
incidents, and then incidents, once you've determined that it's an incident, then you classify your incidents. So because not all incidents require you to assemble the incident response team, those are critical incidents. So, but you have to go through this process of, it's really a maturity process, because we all have events. So in order for me to know what events should be incidents, I have to actually be watching. I have to have some sense of situational awareness to know what my events are and what makes them an incident. But you just go through that process. And then once you figure out what are incidents, then you classify them. And I like to do it simple, like high, medium, low. People seem to be able to understand numbers of 3. If you go 4, 5, like high, medium, low, critical, super critical, you're implementing too much complexity into the issue, too much subjectivity. So just high, medium, low. And then how do you handle those? High incidents go this way. Mediums go this way. Lows go this way. Oftentimes lows just go, help desk handles those. It's, password resets. It's, not things that you need to get security folks involved in. That's the medium ones, maybe. And then you have the highs, which that's when we would assemble the incident response team, and then they would work through those processes. But that's the linear sort of workflow of incident response. And those first 3 things, anybody can do those. You don't need any expertise for that.
Well, like even Jordan, like even using your example, let's say somebody did click on it and it starts creating those rules and changing things. At that point, is it still, yes, it's probably going to be, it's at least enough of an incident that you want to look at stuff, but is it localized to that machine, or has it been something that has spread? And the whole idea in the response is that we've taken something like, if something like this were to happen, and like Evan said, is it, high, medium, or low? Okay, it just went from low to medium. So now that we're at a medium level for something like this, the idea is that our response is at least prepared enough that we know how to respond to something at a medium. And then we go, oh shit! Now, sorry, we're recording, but now everything's down.
Right.
Just went from medium to high. Like even for example, I was on Reddit this morning, and I guess Proofpoint was down for a bit.
Well, they were
So,
they part of the Google Cloud thing yesterday?
Could be.
That's Google. It was Google Cloud. It was Amazon. It was Discord. It was
Flare.
Spotify. It was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
huge.
I know Cloudflare got impacted as well.
Pokemon Go.
Yeah. I mean, that was like, talk about an incident.
Critical.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
a high.
Mm-hmm.
I assembled
For Pokemon.
everybody. All my incident responders got together on that one. Yes, I didn't know what to do. This was basically what happened.
Yeah. I was right in front of a level 5 Mewtwo.
I don't know what that is, but yeah, Mewtwo. Yeah.
Gosh, the days that I would drive my Seth when he was younger, drive him around to find these freaking Pokemon characters.
I might have participated in that a little bit. Even at the age of like 47.
You were doing it for you?
No, I was doing it myself. I had my own driver's license at the time. Well, so as a vCISO, you walk into an organization and you're either going to be inheriting an incident response program plan or you're going to be building one. Or there is none, right? And this is really important. It's almost like if I were to, it's really high priority to get this done sooner rather than later, because as you're doing all the other work of, assessing the information security program, helping them make risk decisions, starting to build parts of the incident, the information security program, and doing all that self-discovery, a lot of times you're bound to find something, something bad happened that they didn't even know about. So you're building the security. That's why, getting an incident response capability installed early on in the process, and you'll find lots of, oftentimes you'll find lots of friction against that because, like I said, they have the propensity, there's the word again, to think that this isn't going to happen to them. So you're hired to do, help them make good information security risk decisions, implement those risk decisions. While you're working on that, they may not see the value of an incident response plan, believe it or not. That happens a lot. Where like, why are we wasting our time on this? Well, I mean, it seemed that's another thing with like being a CISO or a vCISO. The things that seem so obvious to us a lot of times in the work that we're doing are not obvious to other people. So they'll ask like, why are you building an incident response plan? And in my mind, it's like, did you really just ask that question? But they're, different perspective, right? So you have to be able to defend why we do an incident response plan usually right out of the gate.
My experience is that usually they actually when I'm talking to our clients or prospects, that usually they want one, but but they want us to do it. Like they want it to be owned by the MSP, the IC. Like they don't want to be a part of it. I think that's more of the pushback that I see. It's like, yeah, we want an instant response. So just take care of that, right? Instead of being a part of the process, it takes convincing to be like, no, and you have to be a part of this. This is a company, a business thing, not just pawn it off on your MSP.
Right. Yeah, I mean, obviously the MSP is going to play a critical role, but I think a lot of times they'll say that because they don't know all that's involved in doing an incident response plan. Once you start building it, and you're like, then it becomes obvious. Oh, okay, now I see where I have to participate in this.
Yeah. Well, and it's, how like we'll always say that security is not an IT issue. It's a company issue. And when you, and Jordan, to your point, of what the client responds with, that's usually just fueled because they don't know what's involved in it. So the best way to respond with that or proceed in trying to serve as a CISO or vCISO is going through a business impact analysis with the company. Because when you do that, what it is, and we've got on the FR Secure site, there's a whole template that's like freely available to download for it. But it's a respectable lift. And this is where I was always able to navigate through, I don't even want to call it an objection, but just that lack of understanding. Because what you end up doing is there's a spreadsheet that we would give to, first thing we do is identify the different departments in the organization: sales, HR, finance. And depending on the size of the organization, we'll determine how many people are affected by those. But you go to HR and you just ask them, and there's a list of services of, if this were to go down, how bad would that be? And it's great to start there, because probably one of the most critical things is being able to get payroll out.
Right.
So, but you work as that MSP or as that consultant with HR and make sure they understand that. But you're only dealing with HR. You're just looking for their perspective and their understanding of how long if payroll were to go down, is it a day? At what point do we really have an issue? But you get all of that perspective from that department. Separately from the others, and you just methodically work through those departments. Sorry, were you going to say something?
I had a question for just on that. Like,
Yeah.
so when you're talking to HR, do you, and you're trying to get that list of things, are you kind of, if they've never been through one of these, are you encouraging them to talk about it as in terms of like tasks that they do, or are you asking for what systems? Like, are you wanting to get a list of IT systems that are, or cloud applications or whatever that they use, and in that conversation? Or are you just like, what is part of your role or just list all of the things that you do on a daily basis, and like how do you build that first list?
Well,
The first
and
list
we might be getting like a little bit incident response versus DR, right? You're almost walking into DR territory, into disaster recovery territory, because there is going to be a handoff. I mean, you need to develop that, but you got to develop the incident response part first. I mean, you look at that like workflow from event to incident, type of incident, classify, response. If the response goes a certain direction, so you're already working in the response and it goes a certain direction, then it's activate a DR plan. But maybe we all have different experiences, and it's always interesting. And I don't think one's right or wrong. It's just in most of the incident responses that I've dealt with, payroll doesn't come up. It's obviously important. It's more on the disaster side, but it's also in the way we design security programs. One vCISO may go about it this way, another vCISO may go about it that way. There's room for like 1,000 different ways to go about this. So the reason why I'm pointing that out is because I think a lot of people, we don't get the payroll till later, but other people might get the payroll now. I mean, it's obviously a very, very critical process, but usually we're mapping out processes in my, building, mapping out processes as part of a DR initiative. We're doing the business impact analysis. I rarely, if ever, have I done a business impact analysis as part of the incident response plan, but I think it's really interesting that there's multiple ways to do this. So I was just pointing that out. It's really cool to hear how somebody else approaches it, even if it's different than mine. I think, we need to have open minds about that.
Dude, that's a great observation, because optimally the client would tell us if it was payroll or something like that. Meaning, at least what I'm used to doing is going through those departments individually saying, okay, well, what's critical to you? What's critical to sales, to marketing, to production? But you take all of those individually and then put them together. And then from that, you kind of can aggregate what came as the priority. But to your point, Jordan, or to your earlier question, can you reword your question again so I can answer it properly?
I was just curious, like, how you build that list
I just remembered what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It didn't even take the normal 30 seconds. That's awesome. You got to meet the client where they're at.
Yeah, for sure.
Understand that they don't know this.
Well, that's
really are. I'm sorry.
No, that's a good point, because that's a good segue. Because I think what makes IR different for a vCISO versus a CISO, and I want to point out like 4 things that I think are different for sure, because it's about meeting people where they're at. Because I can't just take the same approach that I used over here and just smash it in over here. I may have a process that I normally follow, but I have to customize it from customer to customer. Because as a vCISO, one of the things that's different than an internal CISO is you'll often inherit a broken or incomplete incident response program. Everything from it doesn't exist at all to this is a terrible one to even this is a great one. Like, holy crap, this is a fantastic program. I'm putting this one in, in my, I guess, repertoire, toolbox, whatever. The second thing about a vCISO that's different, and it's about meeting them where they're at, is you have to build trust fast, especially in the middle of chaos, right? If a company doesn't have, a lot of times you're going to be dealing with companies that have never been through an incident before. To them, it's like, holy crap, the world is going to end. You got to build trust fast so that you can, because we have to make decisions. We can't just sit here and idly. We have to be deliberate. And I always have this saying that if you go too fast to document everything, you're going too fast. There's also this inherent thing about people, like when they're in panic, they bolt. They go as fast as possible through things, and that's when you make mistakes. The third thing is you may and probably will lack direct authority over the response teams, over legal, over communications. Whereas a CISO, I have a lot more authority, right? I can dictate things. Hey, plan, go do, as a vCISO, that's going to be challenged for you a lot. And then the fourth thing is the juggling of multiple clients. So all four of these things really are around what you said, Dave, about you have to meet them where they're at. It depends on the client, on what kind of security program or incident response program you're going to be inheriting. It depends on the client and your relationship on how well you're going to be able to build trust, especially in the middle of chaos. Having what level of authority over the people that need to get shit done, that's going to vary from client to client too. And then the fact that I have, as a vCISO, I might have 10, 12, 15 clients, right, that I need to juggle and remember, okay, yeah, that's right, this client, you have to meet him there. And, it's a definite challenge. And it's probably not for everybody, but I like it because for ADHD people like me, it all makes like perfect sense. It's like, oh, chaos again. I love chaos. Let's do this.
Yeah, I feel like I when Dave brought up the business impact analysis, I kind of bit that hook because I actually think that would be a great workshop to present to the vCISO community is to walk people through how to do a business impact analysis. And you got the templates from FR Secure, but templates are templates, and actually experiencing someone walk through it would be a huge thing, I think.
No, dude, I love it because we could almost tabletop it and just walk through. Because like, if I come to you and I say, hey, you're in department X, and I initially as IT people, yeah, we're thinking, okay, what platforms do you use? What technology? And then if the person just looks like, I don't know what you're talking about, walk me through your average day. Walk me through what are your known recurring tasks, that we have to do this monthly. We have whatever those are. And then if you can get that, like Evan said, that'll help you build trust because you're not questioning them. You're just asking them to tell you what they know. And if we get that, it's enough pieces of a puzzle that we could start to build on from there. Because I've done them where we sent out the spreadsheet and we had a briefing with like 5 departments, and we sent out the spreadsheet, and we thought we were doing the right thing. And we got just 5 completely diverse responses back. So instead of going, this ain't cool, it was okay. Now we understand where things are. Let's meet them where we're at. And we ended up just saying, okay, we're going to redo this, but we're going to simplify it and just stay within these rails. And then we got 5 back that were way more consistent. So the people on the IT manager and director had something that they could work with in that regard. And the magic in it, or the beauty in it, is going through that will facilitate when you're on the other side of it. Now everybody understands it's not an IT issue. Mm-hmm. And you can get champions from those other departments. If that helps.
And I suppose that helps when you're going back to like the incident response stuff. If you're building, Evan made the point that like, okay, you get to decide what an incident is, and you get to decide whether it's low, medium, or high, and that's that business impact analysis might help you determine if it's on this system or it's impacting this process, then it's a high.
Yeah, well, then you would have known that if Proofpoint went down, it was a high, because we can't be without email, kind of a thing, if that makes sense. But, and to Evan's point, yeah, there's a business impact analysis, there's disaster recovery, and there's incident response, and they all tangent into each other. They are all
part of the business continuity.
Yeah. They're all interrelated. And the better we can do one of them, the better the other ones will be. And yeah, Evan, and I apologize for going off script there, but
No.
it just made that I'm used to working with small to mid-sized organizations that most of the time we were building it for the first time.
Yeah,
Or go ahead. Sorry.
no, I mean, that's by far the most common. Even
Yeah.
in larger businesses, either they don't have an incident response, or their incident response is nobody even knows they have it. I mean, it's not good. It's rare to walk into one and it's like, oh, this is a really solid incident response plan. But
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Go
what
ahead.
dictates, and I think defining and you hit it where it's like, it's not that people are just ignorant about this. They don't know what an incident response plan is, what it should look like, the roles and responsibilities. And so a lot of times when you get pushback about, all right, MSP, you handle it, that should be a red flag in your mind that this is a great opportunity for me to educate, because that's an ignorant statement. So you'll meet people and they most of them won't know what an incident response plan is, how it's supposed to work. They won't know what a disaster recovery plan is or how that's supposed to work, or a business impact analysis and how that's supposed to work, or business continuity plan, right? And so the business impact analysis, I think, is super important. You can do a lot of those, without the formalness of it. You can actually do a lot of that during an assessment. Just as when you're doing your information security risk assessment, right? You're walking through and you're talking to different people, and you'll get a pretty good idea of what things are the most critical. But business impact analysis, for me, it's traditionally been used to really solidify that disaster recovery plan for more prolonged, sustainable outages and things. Whereas an incident response is like, from the moment we know it, what do we need to start doing? Because when the fire hits, I mean, what should a vCISO do? Let's assume that there is no disaster recovery plan, or maybe there is and you're not sure, you haven't even gotten there yet. You have this like small window at the beginning to control the narrative. Like, how are we going to handle this? And the first step, for a lot of times, is just to slow the chaos. People are usually in panic. They haven't been there before. So it's a great opportunity for you to build that trust, because even if you haven't been there before, like we were talking about when we talked about communicating with boards of directors and executives, even if it's your first time, you got to act like you've been there before. Mm-hmm. Because, and you're not lying. It's just like everybody else is like, oh shit, what to do? And you're the guy or the gal or the person who's like, it's going to be okay. You know what I mean? We're going to handle this. So controlling that narrative is stepping into the chaos, slowing the chaos, establishing who's in charge. If there is no plan, well then, and there's nobody else taking charge, well then maybe it's your job to take charge as the vCISO.
So I have a question. If what I hear you saying, Evan, is that there could be an incident that gets handled because of the incident response plan, and it never activates DRP.
Right. Yeah. The difference usually between incident IR and DRP, if you like the acronyms, is the length of time and the impact. But that'll vary from customer to customer. And it doesn't really matter, because I think we get caught up in, is this DR or incident response? What's important to do is with the client as the vCISO is define these things. So for this client, incident response plan is first, business impact analysis. After that, disaster recovery plan. When these 3, 4, 5 things happen, it now transitions from an incident. So we had event, incident to now disaster. The more black and white you can make that, the more objective you can make that. Because the thing is during the storm, people aren't thinking anymore. Logic gets replaced with emotions, fear, anger, uncertainty, shit. So having things as black and white. So, okay, it hit this thing. So now we're declaring a disaster. It now transitioned from incident to disaster. And one of those things might be the payroll system is affected. Whatever rules you want to define for what these logic gates are between one thing to the next thing, me as the vCISO, it would be like what Dave was talking about. You may do a formal business impact analysis to hash those things out, or you may just find those things out during discussions of building the plan. But that's why I always do disaster recovery or incident response first, flowing into, because it's just, that's the way my mind thinks. It's the logic of event, incident response, meet certain, whatever that logic gate is, transfer over to disaster recovery and or business continuity. It's just, The things that change are the scope and the time and the potential impact. Lots of ways to do it.
Is there like a definition to when incident response transitions to DR? Like what is that the length of time and severity that you were talking about
Yeah.
that determines that?
It's for you to define with the customer. It's for you to consult the customer to make that decision. You can make you can make your recommendations. Like you can just say, well, traditionally as a vCISO, I've said if it exceeds 24-hour outage,
Gotcha.
we're going to transition to disaster recovery. You can make those suggestions, but you got to get everybody on the same page.
So there's really no one size fits all.
No, and that's the problem with, I think, so many people in information security in this industry is you try to smash in a framework
Yeah.
or a standard and one size fits all. Like, that's the only way to do it. The problem is there's no company on the planet that's exactly like the other companies. You know what I mean?
Right.
So why would I expect my incident response to work the same exact way? You got to accommodate that stuff. Like you have a normal workflow, but having this, fuzzy, and at the same, I mean, that's the challenge of incident response, right? You have to have this formalization, still accommodate the grayish areas, but make it as black and white as possible. It's weird.
Yeah. But that's one of the areas where we add so much value, is to be able to navigate that organization or that client through this. Because like you were saying, Jordan, there's a template, and a template's like a tool. So a tool can be a hammer, and different people, you don't use the hammer the same way on every project or every part within a project. And then that's where our experience and everything we're trying to teach and share knowledge on is what the tool does and how we can most optimally apply that tool in support of that client.
So let's assume that you're the vCISO and you started working with this client and, you haven't even worked on incident response yet and something happens, or maybe they've deferred it, whatever. But number one, you got to control that narrative, right? Slow that chaos, establish who's in charge. Somebody needs to take control and communicate as clearly as possible, not in your language, but in their language. Because the next thing we need to do is activate the right people. We have to get, number one, is there an incident response plan? Has it ever been tested? Usually the answer is no. Identify the key roles like legal, IT, communications. If there is a PR, if it's a small company, they probably don't. Legal is probably, on retainer somewhere. IT might be you. Is there insurance, vendors, right? So if there's no plan, you got to work through this process pretty fast, really. If there is no plan, create a quick incident command structure on the fly. And the command structure might be, we want to get an executive in that command structure somewhere so that they can authorize certain actions that need to be taken. Plus, it gives me that authority that I'm really missing as a vCISO. I can't order people around, but if I've got the CEO of the company in the command structure, and that's pretty easy to do during an incident because they're panicky anyway. They want to be involved probably, but it sucks to do that on the fly because you may not even know everybody yet. You may not have made gotten through everything, but if you can get like an executive, like a CEO or even a CFO, if there's a CIO, somebody with a C, they can help you identify what the rest of that command structure might need to be. But you need to do it pretty quick when shit hits the fan. Set a communication cadence, and don't forget that there's two communication flows in an incident response. There's one internal and there's one external, and they're different. The internal communication flow, because if you don't take care of the internal, what happens is a lot of rumors start to fly. People start to talk. So what was originally meant to be an internal communication became an external communication because somebody couldn't keep their mouth shut. So, working the internal, who gets the updates, how often, in what format, externally, who gets to talk to the media, regulators, customers. There's two communication and they're completely different. And as the vCISO, it's not uncommon that you have to step up and kind of be the adult in the room.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
As you're talking through that, kind of getting everything organized on the front end there, like it's obvious that like that's needed. In my head, I keep thinking that it's a lot of time going by too. And so I'm curious, as you're talking through, oh, we got to set all these things. How long is that typically going to take? Like
in those first three things.
Yeah.
If you're walking, I mean, you'll get better every time you do it. So let's say like a typical, I don't know, there's no typical, but maybe 150 employee, 200 employee company, small to mid-size. You're the VC, so you haven't gotten here yet. For you to get control of the narrative, activate the right people, set the communication cadence, just those three things, depending on what kind of pushback you get, that should be half hour, maybe hour. So it seems like a lot, but you have to move on this pretty quickly without being hasty either. I mean, you don't want to make stupid choices, but just think those three things: get control of the narrative, so which is basically just calm everybody, calm. We got to think this through. We got to take the right approach. Activating the right people in a 200 employee company, that's not hard to do because it's not that complicated. It's you maybe have 2-3 CEO type or C type people to start establishing that command structure. They can answer questions like, all right, who do we need in legal? You probably already know the IT thing. Insurance, that's easy. Do you have cyber insurance? That one goes pretty fast. And then setting the communication cadence. Don't need to overthink it, but it'd be something as simple as like, all right, any external communications like media, announcements to customers, all that has to flow through you, CE, CI, so whoever that C person is. And maybe you roll the internal communications the same way. So that stuff, it seems like a lot, but those three things should go pretty fast. The next one is harder because now we got to get, so you establish that, you say you knew nothing, you walked into this, the shit hits the fan. Now we got to do containment, right? We only know like the high level stuff. Maybe that's happened, some things you can see. So you have to work through that fast so you can get containment and root cause. And, you may have to call in some experts for this. You may not have the technical expertise. You maybe get on the phone with, somebody from FR Secure or somebody from other IR teams that can come and do the technical stuff. And they're just going to reinforce those top three things that I already mentioned, if they're good, because they're going to want those same things. They don't want to work in chaos. They understand the importance of all these things.
How long does it typically take to engage? Let's say you don't have someone internal, you're trying to engage FR Secure or any other company. So it took 30 minutes to an hour to organize. Now you call them. About how long does it take to respond typically?
Depends. It depends on current workload. It depends on, severity of what's going on. And sadly, in some cases, the teams can't take them on. So then you're like, oh, shit. What I would suggest, if I was your vCISO and we had time to plan ahead of time, I would already have agreements set up with IR teams where I'd shared our incident response plan so they're aware of it. They've got it on file. We've got some sort of an agreement, some sort of SLA on when we can expect them to come. But if you don't have that ahead of time, then, it's best effort. You may not be able to, at that point in time, you may not be able to be choosy about who you get.
Yeah, I'm realizing like a lot of the answers or feedback I'm giving you is led under the presumption that there's not a fire burning right at that time, and Evan saying, and Evan's leading from, hey, this is on fire. We execute now. And it's making me realize that your idea of a workshop would be really awesome if we did really 3 workshops on an incident response, disaster recovery, and a business impact analysis, and being able just literally a workshop of tabletopping through them. And by the time we're on the other side, we'll better understand how they all interrelate and stuff like that. But to Evan's point, if the building's on fire, you're trying to understand. Well, it's all the things that he said, because it's hard to put a timeline on it, because minimally we want to know, at what point do we contact the insurance company, because they may determine who gets called in and things like that. And then that's going to play into the timeline of that response and stuff like that. So where we would be better serving you is just helping to identify and develop the muscle memory of the steps that we go through. And then over time, we can go through those faster and faster.
Yeah.
And then
Some of that conversation is is good, topics for when, if you are talking to a client that is maybe not understanding the value of an incident response plan, because you can just quickly explain it. We have a plan. Timelines go down, significantly when you have all that stuff sorted out ahead of time. No plan, we're talking 4 to 48 hours before anyone's actually containing it.
Well, maybe. I mean, because the containment piece, sometimes it's you don't need the incident response team. I mean, it depends on the incident, but sometimes you need a forensic, sometimes you don't. Sometimes I've gotten calls from like friends. So, sometimes you may not have, there may be no team available and you call a friend. Really the biggest thing I think on containment and root cause, if you don't have an incident response team already en route or there, is just not to make things worse. So you want people to, because people, again, when people panic, it's crazy what people do. The choices, the decisions they make during an incident oftentimes don't make any logical sense, and they regret the fact that they did it later on. But limit the blast radius, so like, and preserve evidence, right? When the incident response, so knowing what an incident response team is going to be looking for when they come and they do show up, they're going to be looking for logs. They want logs. They want evidence to point them in the direction of what actually occurred, so that they can truly block and contain and start the eradication and getting things back to normal. So it's not like, well, we can't get an incident response team in, so okay, we just sit here and wait. But you need to guide that as the vCISO, probably, if they don't have anybody in-house to, nobody else is doing it. And then the next thing would be to document everything. I mean, I can't stress that enough, because you just don't know which way things are going to go. You already talked about, in this little talk here, we already talked about how incidents get reclassified over time. Like, originally, this was just a medium severity incident, but then as we started to respond to it, it's like, this is a lot worse than we thought it was. So now it becomes a critical or the high. You also don't know where it's going to go, from a legal perspective. You don't know if customers are going to be affected. You don't know if regulators are going to get involved. It's just like, and the fact that you don't know all that stuff is the reason why you document everything, because you'll be prepared for whatever comes later by the documentation. It also prepares you for a better incident response the next time, because you're going to use that documentation for your postmortem analysis at the end of the incident. And so that rule of, if you're going too fast to document everything, you're going too fast. I can't stress that one enough. It sucks to be sitting there deposed by opposing counsel and not know why you did what you did, because you can't remember what you did. That sucks. So document that. And as you build a bigger incident response capability, and you would never expect, and neither would opposing counsel, by the way, or a regulator, you wouldn't expect somebody to nail an incident response if they've never had an incident before. It's a maturing thing. So your first incident, could you do better? Absolutely. You can do better on every incident. It's like playing Monday morning quarterback, but that's the point, right? Continue the maturing process so that the next time we get hit by this thing, it's not going to hurt us nearly as much. But yeah, it's going to hurt. I mean, who's going to lie to you? I've been blamed a lot, or accused of not caring. I've probably shared that before, about not caring in an incident response, because I'm so like, there's no emotions really. Like, I've had people say, like, don't you care? I mean, I'm like, yeah, I care. Why would you ask? I mean, I'm sitting here. Why would you think I don't care? Well, you're not like freaking out. Like, would that help? Would you like me to freak the fuck out right now? Because I can do that. I just don't think it's going to help us.
Right.
But that's what it feels like. I mean, I wasn't always like that. Like, I remember incidents, my first few incidents, man, I was freaking out just along with everybody else. It just takes time, and incident response isn't for everybody. We've reset people. So when you build an incident response plan and you feel confident. So ideally, every one of our customers would have an incident response plan that they've tested, that they've done tabletops. They do tabletops regularly. Everybody's bought in. Everybody knows their roles. Everybody knows their responsibilities. And then an incident happens and you're like, all right, we're ready. There's also this overconfidence that I've seen, like, oh yeah, we got this. It's like, it's like you went too far on the other side. And you find out, like, when the rubber really hits the road in an incident, that's when you find out if you really got the right team for it. Somebody's got to be the lead on the incident response. Somebody's got to make the calls. You can't wait for consensus on a lot of things. So Common challenges for vCISOs in an IR: no authority or accountability. Sometimes we have terrible tooling. Many small, mid-size organizations have like zero logging, none. So when you're trying to figure out root cause analysis, you're like, well, I have no idea what the hell happened. So as a vCISO, if I have the opportunity to attend to these things and work on these things prior to an incident, well, then great. If I don't have that, going into this with eyes wide open and situational awareness, knowing these are common things that I'm going to run into, it helps me prepare for it mentally. It reduces my stress. I think it protects me from burnout, that this is what it's going to be like. No authority, accountability, sometimes, oftentimes, almost always, terrible tooling. You're going to have blame games where finger point. It's like, save that shit for later. Let's get this thing working and then, figure it out. So your job on the blame game thing is to cut it off early. It's not going to help anybody. I get it. It's a preservation thing, but update your resumes at home after we're done. And then over communication, under communication. The CEO wants to send an email to all the customer. Legal says send nothing. The right answer is somewhere in between all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
If you do have the opportunity as a vCISO to attend to these things before an incident happens, so that's the great place to be, right? We can be proactive. So if you're working with a client as a vCISO and we haven't gotten there yet, or they don't want to get there on the incident response planning and all that stuff, well, then that's what you can expect. You can expect it to be kind of a shit show, because it is. But you got to be the person that you don't got to be. I guess as a vCISO, you could call in somebody else if you had somebody on your team that you could walk into this, but expect that chaos if you do have the time. So an incident hasn't hit us yet. We have the time to plan. We have the time to be proactive. Amen. That's like the beautiful place to be, because then you can write an incident response plan. You can validate the incident response plan, making it clear, simple, usable. Like Dave said, we've got templates. Templates are meant to be used as just a framework on what parts should go into the plan, but you got to fill in all the parts. Things about incident response plans that make them, I think, more usable is, one, it actually reflects your environment. It reflects your team. It reflects your culture, your processes. It's lots of pictures and colors. During an incident, people don't read. It's like their reading brain went to shit, but they understand colors. That's why stop signs are red, right? Because colors, people can follow colors. So that's a good incident response plan. If you have the ability to do that and be proactive, write a good plan. Run tabletop exercises. Doesn't have to be fancy. Doesn't have to be like awesome. It's just sometimes it's just getting people in the room talking about incident response and what they're going to do in certain situations. I mean, don't overthink it and act like the damn expert. The third thing, if you had the time to do it, identify those external partners. If you have, Dave mentioned it on insurance. Do you have cyber insurance? Get out the policy, read it, because in there, the way insurance works is they're looking for a reason not to pay the claim. That's the honest truth. Insurance companies are in business to make money. They don't make money when they pay claims. So in your insurance, there's going to be time frames. There's going to be certain requirements that you're going to have to meet in notification and post breach, during breach, whatever, that you have to follow. If you don't follow them, they could potentially neglect your claim. So that's one external partner you need to work with. Is there a breach coach? Is there one provided? The incident response firm, those are different. Don't expect the insurance company to do your incident response for you. They don't work for you. You know what I mean? They're in business to make money. Get that stuff on paper. And then to Dave's point too, align this BCP, business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan, incident response plan. Those are a stack of plans. Align that stack so it's a seamless stream through them all. They're separate plans, but they're a stack. They have to be together. They have to be married together. They transition back and forth from each other. So those are the four things. If you have the time to do it, to be proactive, write and validate the plan, run a tabletop exercise, identify your external partners, and align that stack between the BCP, the DR, and the IR. I can't stress that shit enough. So if you don't have the time, do the chaos thing. If you do have the time, reduce the chaos thing.
So as a vCISO, then you could build your chaos plan. So that's probably that's kind of what you're saying, right? It's like, okay, your client doesn't have a incident response plan. You can have your own chaos plan. What to do when they call me in and they don't have a plan, and everything that you said today ought to be written down in that plan.
Yes.
Yeah, dude, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Chaos plan. Yeah. Hey, Evan. So pop quiz. So you mentioned that this incident response plan creation would be early on. Imagine you show up to a client. They have nothing. They have no plans. They have no policies. They've got no security program. Realistically, where are you putting that incident response plan in the order of working on that stuff?
If I'm hired to be your CISO, your vCISO, it would be do the assessment, and depending on what the most critical thing that came out of the assessment. So that might be a small to mid-sized business. That might be a couple of weeks, maybe a month. Who knows? I mean, you got to go with their flow. If asset management is as shitty as we think it probably is going to be anyway, it would be do the assessment, work on asset management and incident response at the same time. So it's in the top 2 or 3 for me. I hate being caught with my pants down. Unless, I mean, I like my pants down, but I mean, I don't like to be caught like that.
Metaphorically.
Yeah. In the backyard with welcome guests.
Right. Well, because it's just, I always say that there's those 3 things, right? Trust, credibility, and likability. And it hurts my trust with the client. It hurts my credibility with the client when there's an incident that happens and I missed the opportunity to help prepare for it ahead of time because I'm supposed to be the expert enough to know how important that is. So for me, it's top 2 or 3 for sure.
So Jordan, I have a question for you. Did
Go ahead.
Did you volunteer to lead that tabletop exercise
For BIA?
Yeah.
I feel like I have so much more to learn there, so I'll lead it as long as Dave is right next to me, my number 1 fan.
There you go.
Walking through and making sure we're delivering valuable experience.
We'll let the bromance work together.
Yeah, boy.
I also think the chaos plan, we ought to make a template of that, and that should be available for the community as well.
Yeah, and we can do that, or Jordan, I can do that, and you can be the business owner and kind of walk you through that way. And so
I don't want any responsibilities in any of this.
You still have to be there because I want you there.
Oh,
just
okay.
You can just sit in the back and watch.
I think I'm going to enjoy this.
Yeah. Well, Jordan, and if you want, sorry, Meg, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, is that all it takes to get Evan to participate?
That
I really
and
want
pretzels.
to be there.
What flavor are those?
I don't flavor enough.
The honey mustard ones are the best. Those thin, crispy ones.
Those thin what?
You got hummus for that? Any hummus?
Hey there, matey. All right. Was that a good episode? I thought it was a good episode. Dave, I liked your insights. Like I said, one of the things I think we struggle with, especially old timers like me and maybe others, is thinking that our way is the only way. We've been doing this for so long, like this, it's tried and true, but that's the wrong mentality for any of this, because there are different ways that people approach things, and there's value in that you can marry up with your traditional way. You don't have to abandon it, but marry it up, right? So good. I like your insight.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Well, that was episode 57. And according to my math, that makes the next episode 58.
Brilliant.
That
I'm with you.
Is sound.
Yeah.
No, that's why I'm in management. You're welcome.
All right, CvCISO audience, we appreciate you guys.
Speak for yourself. I don't.